as much as we can. That means some people are going to lose their jobs.
Yes.
Ministries, departments, agencies.
That is the reality, because you see, for me, the most important, we need to remove this subsidy, because the internally displaced people in the northeast of this country are productive people. They are the most productive Nigerians. They they've been in their rural communities. They consistently, over the last 20, 40 years, they've been growing food and contributing to food security in this country. Now, because of the insurgencies there, they've been displaced. These are people that we need to help now. So if we're going to spend the 500 billion on social welfare, let's spend a significant amount of this money on this group of people who have been productive Nigerians, and get them back to their productivity level, so that we don't create a refugee crisis. We need to remove the subsidy. It's not sustainable. And we're saying oil now is at $30 a barrel. So where is the subsidy? Is there still a subsidy?
Mr. Kerry,
yes.
They're diversifying the economy.
Right.
Now, after that meeting, the president was quoted as saying, when he receives a delegation from France, said something about this budget will be used to diversify the economy. We'll look at diversifying the economy. He talked about the fact that there are certain policies that will be put forward that would help to do that. But our Greek sector, our mining sector, domestic manufacturing, you talked about power that can solve all of that. The question I would want to ask is something that a layman out there will ask. We've been hearing about Nigeria's GDP, and the oil is just 14%. What else makes this GDP, and how is it that we cannot tend to go down that line of drawing from the other bit? 84%. Oil is just 14%.
Let me go historical on you. When oil was at 120, 140, or 111, 115, the citizenry pay very little attention to what's going on, because the subsidy is the only commodity you're getting. The social contract was not solid. What do I mean by that? Don't bother us. Do whatever you do with the oil income. That's essentially what we have not said, but that was the reality. You, as a government, you are voted into power, and you must be accountable. Now, as citizens, we also must be accountable. How? We pay our taxes. Now, if an economy has a GDP of 600 billion, and assuming that on average the tax to GDP ratio is, say, 20%, then you're looking at 120 billion in total tax revenue that could be raised, right? But that's not the reality. The reality is that it's probably around 10, maybe low teens. That means that there is a dislocation somewhere. We might probably be one of the lowest tax regimes in the world, comparable economic size. Now, that says a lot. And that's the reason why there was so much corruption. But here is a government who has a posture that says we want to deal with security, corruption, and job creation. Now, when you start talking about job creation, then you now talk about how. And the how...
That's what Tilawa mentioned.
Exactly. And the how
Policy
is where
direction.
diversification comes in. And you have to have solid economic policies that would drive those. Mind you, the medium-term expenditure framework is a strategy document. And you now, open those layers of onion, right, to see what's in it. And I can see the posture of, the social addressing of the vulnerable citizens. And I can also somehow see, at least in the rhetoric, the discussion about diversifying the economy. And we have to see those things like investment in agriculture. Agriculture takes care of the employment of millions of Nigerians in the rural areas. Now, what you need to do is cluster it. In Ondo, you need to have a cocoa belt clustered so that from the farm gate to processing should be so short that there won't be wastages, depots or warehouses were certified ones, where things do not just perish. There are also perishable commodities like the vegetables, tomatoes, what have you. Those are very sensitive commodities. You produce it, if you're not careful, you lose 60% of it within a matter of weeks. Now, if you don't have that integration, then all we're doing is just paying lip service to the idea of diversifying the economy. So something substantial has to happen. And obviously, it would be a combination of some level of incentives so that private sector come in, and a certain level of government taking the bold step in efficiently utilizing the little resources that we now have, or the no resources, since we are going to end up borrowing anyway. And the other discussion, which I think Tilawa touched on, but we haven't expanded on it, is the issue of the monetary policy and also clarity in the fiscal policy. I have started seeing the Minister of Finance and Budget and National Planning having those conversations, but I haven't seen the discussion around fuel subsidy. It's key. It has, if you do the equation, it will probably release 800 million. What is it? We paid 515 in the supplementary budget, 517 for subsidy. There was another 200 or so that Jonathan spent before he left. So in 2015 alone, we've spent nearly 800 billion, or over 700 billion anyway, on fuel subsidy. Now, that is savings that could go directly into the system. And then you now begin to talk about diversification in the true sense of the word, because we've been paying lip service for diversification the last 20 or so years in Nigeria.
Now, you've touched on something that Nigerians will be very passionate about, and that's the subsidy issue. Yes. In 2012, everyone was out and saying no to the removal. And now you say subsidy should be removed. And the ordinary man is going to ask you, this is the only way something gets to me. Why remove it?
You see, let's not deceive ourselves. We're all driving down here today, this morning. You've seen all the fuel queues. This is Lagos, okay? I was in Kano 3 weeks ago, and nobody pays 97 naira for fuel in Kano. Okay, it's been like that for years. Okay, so don't let's deceive ourselves on these things. It's just a waste. It's something that's going down the drain. One item that has been deregulated is diesel fuel, AGO.
Exactly.
And as the oil prices drop, the prices of diesel is also dropping to the level now that it's probably at par, even lower than PMS. Now, let us look at the numbers. You have spent, what, $35 billion in the last 5 years on subsidies. That's $7 billion every year. How much does it cost to build a world-class refinery? If we had, over those last 5 years, saved that money and built, with that money we can build a refining capacity to supply products for the whole of West Africa and build pipelines. If we had made that massive investment 5 years ago, 35 billion into building 2 or 3 world-class refineries in Nigeria, what would be the cost of fuel in Nigeria today? We will be net exporters of fuel products. So is that justifiable? Even if the people do not see and are looking for short-term gain, the whole essence of government is to be able to look at the long-term interest of the country. So let's not, the common man is an excuse. Nobody has been paying that amount for fuel. Nobody enjoys that amount. It's only in Lagos. We're spoiled in Lagos. Go outside Lagos, then you understand what life is all about in terms of fuel. If we have these queues in Lagos, you know that in other parts of the country it's at a standstill. Yeah. And the only way they can get it is from the secondary market, i.e. black market. So even in Lagos now, if you want to buy fuel, we know how much we are paying at the black market, because I'm not going to go on queue.